The dawn crept slowly across the land, as if even the sun itself hesitated to reveal what dangers and struggles the day would bring. At first the sky was pale and silent, holding its breath above the vast plains, but soon it turned to shades of amber and fire, spilling light across the horizon. Shadows pulled back from the jagged cliffs, and the stillness of night gave way to the murmur of life, the distant calls of giant birds, the rustle of creatures stirring in the tall grasses, the low grumble of something vast and unseen moving far beyond. In a shallow cave carved by wind and rain, a small band of early humans stirred. They were not yet the humans of cities and languages, but the seeds of that destiny lived in them. Their eyes were sharp, reflecting both fear and determination, and their bodies bore the scars of countless battles with hunger, cold, and beasts larger than themselves. Each breath they drew was both a triumph and a challenge, for survival had no guarantees in this world. The leader was the first to rise. He was broad-shouldered, with a heavy brow and strong arms hardened by years of the hunt. His skin was darkened by the sun, roughened by the wind, and his back carried the faint marks of claw wounds, a story written by survival itself. He stepped cautiously to the cave's edge and looked out across the grasslands. His gaze was searching, his nostrils flaring as he tasted the air. He did not see danger, but he knew it was always there, lurking, waiting. Behind him, others stirred. Women gathered the youngest children, pulling them close to their sides. A boy barely old enough to walk mimicked the leader's stance, his small hand gripping a stone as though he too was ready to defend the tribe. A group of men crouched near, a pile of crude weapons, wooden shafts, tipped with sharp stones, spears that had been shaped with patience and necessity. These tools were more than objects, they were lifelines. The silence of dawn was broken by the growl of a saber-toothed predator echoing faintly through the hills. Though distant, the sound carried a chilling reminder. The hunters could become hunted at any moment. Every member of the group stiffened, eyes scanning the horizon. Even the children froze, their instincts as sharp as those of their elders. The leader raised his hand and the tribe understood. Today they would not wait for hunger to weaken them. Today they would track the herds that roamed the plains. The earth beneath their feet was soft from the night's dew. Each footprint pressed deep into the soil as though marking not only their path but their existence. Every step forward was a gamble, between life and death, between finding food or becoming prey. The rising sun bathed them in light as they descended from the safety of the cave. The journey of survival began anew, painted against the vast and merciless canvas of a world still young, still wild, and still testing the courage of those fragile beings who dared to call it home. The sun had climbed high by the time the hunters reached the edge of the plains. Heat shimmered above the tall grasses, and the wind carried with it the scent of dust, sweat, and life. The hunters moved in silence, their bare feet pressing carefully into the soil, leaving only the faintest marks. Every sound mattered here. The rustle of a stalk, the snap of a twig could spell the difference between success and an empty return to the cave. Then they saw them, the herd. Massive beasts grazed in the open fields, their broad shoulders rising above the grass like small hills. Their curved horns glinted in the sunlight, and their thick hides twitched as insects buzzed around them. Each beast carried strength enough to trample a man into the earth. Yet they were also survival itself, meat for hungry stomachs, hides for warmth, bones for tools. The hunters knew that if they failed today, the fire that burned in their cave might be their last. The leader crouched low, his eyes narrowing as he studied the herd. He motioned with a tilt of his chin and a sweep of his hand. The group spread silently through the grasses, each hunter taking a position in the great circle of their plan. There were no words, no spoken strategies, only the language of glances, nods, and instinct. Their lives depended on their unity, for alone none of them could bring down a creature of such size. A low whistle cut the air, the signal to begin. One hunter rose from the grass with a shout, hurling a stone-tipped spear toward the herd. It struck a beast's flank with a dull thud, and chaos exploded across the plains. The herd roared in alarm, muscles rippling as they surged forward in a storm of thunderous hooves. Dust rose in great clouds, choking the air, but the hunters did not falter. They ran. Feet pounded against the earth, lungs burned, but desperation lent them strength. The leader sprinted beside the panicked herd, his spear clenched tightly in his hand. Another hunter darted from the opposite side, waving his arms to split one beast from the rest. The frightened animal turned, stumbling slightly, its pace slowing. The tribe closed in, surrounding it like wolves. Spears flew. One struck deep into the beast's shoulder, another grazed its flank. The creature bellowed, its eyes wide with fury and pain. It turned suddenly, charging at one of the hunters. For an instant, death was a breath away, but the leader leapt forward, driving his weapon with all his weight into the beast's chest. The creature staggered, collapsing in a shudder of dust and blood. Silence followed. The hunters stood panting, their chests heaving, sweat dripping down their bodies. They did not cheer, for they knew this was not triumph but survival. The fallen beast was life itself. Its flesh would fill their stomachs, its hide would shield them from cold nights. Its bones would sharpen into tools. Exhausted but alive, they gathered around their kill. Their faces bore the hardness of struggle, but in their eyes flickered the quiet fire of hope. For one more day the tribe had endured. The sun sank low, painting the horizon in crimson and shadow. The hunters returned slowly, dragging their prize across the plains. The beast's blood left a dark trail on the soil, a line that seemed to mark the endless cycle of life feeding life. Vultures circled above, their cries sharp and greedy, but none dared swoop, so close to a moving band of humans armed. With spears and determination, by the time they reached the cave, dusk had settled. The women and children rushed forward, eyes wide, hands reaching to touch the carcass. Relief rippled silently through the group. Today there would be food. Tomorrow perhaps there would be strength. The leader set to work, napping a fresh edge onto his stone tool. The scraping sound echoed softly in the fading light, as others began to carve the meat. From the great animal's body, the smell of fresh blood filled the air, metallic and heavy. Fat and sinew clung to their hands, sticky and warm as they sliced and tore. Yet with practiced efficiency, they worked together, some cut, some carried. Others stacked the meat upon flat rocks. The hides were stretched, the bones piled, each piece destined for a purpose. Nothing would be wasted. When the first flames cracked into life, the group seemed to breathe as one. Fire was not just warmth, it was safety, a barrier between them and the countless eyes glowing in the night. Sparks leapt into the air, rising like tiny stars before vanishing into the dark. Around the flames the tribe gathered, bodies weary but spirits alive. The children pressed close to their mothers, their wide eyes reflecting the dance of the fire. They gnawed at small scraps of meat, their laughter rough and guttural but filled with innocence. The older hunters sat in a ring, sharpening spears with careful strokes, their movements rhythmic, almost ritualistic. Every sound beyond the crackle of the fire made them glance into the darkness. Alert, waiting. Out there, predators prowled. The saber-toothed cats, the shadowed wolves, the silent reptiles that hunted by moonlight. The fire alone held them back. As the meat roasted, a new smell filled the night. Rich, savory, primal. It was the scent of survival transformed into something greater. A promise of strength. The tribe tore into the cooked flesh with eager hunger, juices dripping down their chins, their stomachs filling after long days of emptiness. For the first time in days, their bodies loosened with relief. Stories rose with the smoke, not in words as we know them, but in gestures, grunts, and sounds that carried meaning. A hunter reenacted the charge of the beast, stomping and bellowing as the children shrieked in delight. A woman gestured to the fire, her hands tracing shapes in the air, mimicking the rising sparks as if speaking of spirits unseen but present. In the flickering glow, shadows danced on the cave walls, turning their movements into living art. The night deepened. The fire burned low, its embers glowing red like the eyes of ancient guardians. One by one, the tribe drifted into sleep, their bodies curled together in instinctive protection. The leader remained awake a little longer, staring into the dark, listening to the sounds of the night, the howl of predators, the rustle of grass, the eternal heartbeat of the wild. The fire crackled softly, and though the world beyond was full of danger, inside its circle there was a fragile sense of peace. In the darkness, they were not just surviving. They were becoming something more, something human. Dawn returned, slow and quiet, painting the plains with the pale silver of morning mist. The fire had burned down to ash, leaving only faint smoke rising into the chill air. One by one, the tribe stirred, stretching sore limbs, their breath steaming in the cold. The carcass of the beast from yesterday had been stripped nearly bare. Bones now lay scattered, some already shaped into tools. Others gnawed for marrow. Nothing had gone to waste, yet nothing would last forever. Hunger always returned, and the world demanded they move again. The leader rose first, as he always did. His eyes swept the horizon, searching for signs, movement in the grass, shadows near the tree line, tracks pressed into the mud. The rains had fallen lightly in the night, leaving the ground damp and soft, perfect for footprints. He crouched, studying the marks of animals, the sharp pads of a cat, the three-toed scratch of a bird larger than a man, the deep indent of hooves. He grunted low in his throat, a signal to the others. The plains were alive with life, but also with danger. The tribe gathered their few belongings. Hides were bundled over shoulders, tools tied with sinew into makeshift carriers. Children lifted onto hips. The air was cool but carried the promise of heat, and the smell of damp earth mixed with smoke clung to them as they began to move. Their feet pressed into the wet soil, leaving behind a new trail, a new story written on the land. They moved cautiously, always scanning, always alert. The grass hissed as the wind blew through it, hiding the shapes of predators. Every step was a choice. Forward meant hope but also risk. Yet still they went on, for if they stayed, hunger or death would come. To survive was to move. To move was to live. As they traveled, the children mimicked the adults. A boy dragged a stick across the earth, leaving lines like symbols he did not yet understand. A girl carried a small stone, cradling it as if it were treasure. Their laughter came in bursts, small sparks of light in a harsh world. The adults tolerated it, for even in survival, there was room for beginnings, tiny, signs of something greater than instinct. Hours passed. The sun climbed higher, burning away the mist. The tribe crossed a shallow stream, the water cold and biting at their ankles. They paused to drink, cupping the water in their hands, their reflections flickering on the surface. For a moment, the leader looked down at his own face, hard, scarred, unyielding, and saw not only himself, but something beyond, a being more than animal, more than prey, a creature walking toward a future it could not yet imagine, footprints toward tomorrow. When they rose again, the world stretched endless before them. Rolling plains, distant mountains, skies vast and unbroken. To the tribe, it was both terrifying and full of promise. Each step they took was carved into the earth, but also into time itself. They did not know of the empires that would rise, of the tools that would shape stone and metal, of the words that would one day carry stories beyond memory. They knew only the present, the hunt, the fire, the horizon waiting. Yet in their footsteps lay the beginning of all that was to come. And so with the cry of a hunting bird above and the whisper of wind around them, the tribe pressed forward, footsteps on the edge of survival,